for kind of before we officially start.
Okay.
This thing.
We've got what,
and
28 people?
We're live now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Great. Well, for those of you that have just joined in, we've started the session, but I'll term it a bit of the pre-talk as we wait for more people to sort of join us. And feel free as well to put where you're joining us from today inside the chat. Very pleased. We have over 400 people that are signed up for today's call. And of course, we'll be sharing the presentation and material after. So again, if you wouldn't mind popping in the chat where you're coming to from today. Martin and I are both live in Calgary, Canada, but I'm actually in Newtown Square today. Martin, are you in Calgary?
I am actually in Calgary today.
Oh, Bangalore, Amsterdam, Johannesburg, nice. Antwerp. This is truly a global community. California, Michigan, Mumbai, Atlanta, nice. Ottawa, go Canada. Niagara Falls. Hey, hi Angie, good to see you join us again. Southern California. Argentina, this is cool.
We're talking a global presentation here, and we appreciate people coming in. We know some of you, it might be late at night or early in the morning, so we appreciate you coming in.
This is definitely a very hot topic. So just wait a couple more minutes past the hour. Let's just do some quick round of informal introductions before we start the formal program for another minute or two. My name's Paul Kurchina. Heavily involved in helping drive our global enterprise architecture community overall, and so pleased you folks can join us. Martin, you're kind of my partner in crime in a lot of these activities. Do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Sure. Martin Mizek. I'm an enterprise architect with SAP. Been with SAP about 10 years now, and specialize in utilities, but also participate in the community, and love that we have a growing and thriving enterprise architecture community. Lots of good things going on, and we're here to tell you more about one today.
And Klaus, on your end, maybe we'll save you for just a few more minutes. So since you're really our featured guests, Martin and I are just sort of fillers around the edges with some different content and sharing. So why don't we get started? Just as a bit of a context setter. And apologize for some of you. We've moved this webcast a few times. It was kind of one of those things. We had a few different events happening. There were a lot of exciting things that SAP was working on from an e-learning content that we're creating. So we felt this point in time is right to do this session and to do some sharing. And again, we'll be sharing the recording. We'll share the slides and some crucial links. And with you, and feel free as well as we're going through it to pose questions in the chat. And again, thank you for we're hitting a lot of different countries around the planet. So, and many of you are on some, appreciate your time zones, late at night, early in the morning, across the board. And to me, it really punctuates the interest in this topic. Just before we started, I checked the number of sign-ins, and we're well over 400 people that are signed into today's call. And just a reminder for you folks, we're all on a journey together, and sessions like this are just one dimension of the content we'll be covering. And things aren't just about physical events, though we have some awesome physical events. It's the bring people together both physically and virtually to have this continuum of engagement to really help move the needle. So let me just start with some sharing on my end. I mean, these things are about sharing and learning. I just want to highlight as well, and I just posted something in the chat. And by the way, we'll compose all these links together of all these items. We just had actually a month ago this week a very successful event in Newtown Square in Pennsylvania at SAP's headquarters, where we had 450 plus enterprise architects come together as a community. Awesome feedback, awesome engagement. And what I like to say is we don't let content at these events live and die at the event, and we continue the sharing. Even with when you're in multi-track sessions, you can't go to the same sessions, right? Invariably, you got to make choices. So what we've done, and in the link I posted in the chat, I shared a couple of different things. I've highlighted as well, starting April 1st. We'll be sharing over the course of 30 days, or I'll be sharing in my LinkedIn channel and our EASAP community LinkedIn group, posts highlighting sessions during the event. Many of these sessions will be sharing key takeaways, quotes, highlights, resources, and links to as well the presentations as well as the video recordings. The videos turned out great, and it's your chance, if you didn't attend, to sort of partake of these sessions. But also, if you did attend and you thought, wouldn't I love my coworkers to learn about it, you can access that information as well. So stay tuned starting April 1st. And inside that, the link I shared, it's not just an announcement of the 30 days. There's a link to our EASAP community YouTube channel. So, and you can even Google EASAP Community YouTube to get to it. But inside it is a lot of presentations and basically a playlist by day as well, days 1, 2, and 3 of that content. So definitely check that material out. So that's a bit about that event. I mean, we're going to have a number of meetups, different activities that are going to happen throughout the year. One thing I want to highlight as well, we're looking to do is in the month of June is basically one-day events across North America that are EA days of learning. So in essence, it's a day of learning content directed for architects in 4 to 5 cities across North America. So stay tuned to that. So Martin, that's still in the planning stage. You know, the other thing that there's this thing called Sapphire that's a little in front of us. Doing some exciting things are happening with ASUG around the enterprise architect community at ASUG. So do you want to talk about some of the great things that are sort of going on?
Sure. So ASUG this year, I don't know if everyone knows, but May 19th to 21st in Orlando. And looking forward to seeing everyone there. It's ASUG and ASUG Annual Conference and Sapphire. They always have it combined these days. On the first day of Sapphire, it is the conference floor is open, but we want to see you up in the upstairs where we're having an EA learning session pre-conference all day long. It can be added to your registration. There is a fee for the session, but overall, it is a session dedicated for enterprise architects and helping you on your learning journey. So that day, briefly in the morning, will be more of a learning experience going over SAP methodology and framework. And in the afternoon, we're going to be giving you a preview of the things you need to know from an enterprise architect's point of view, what you'll be experiencing at Sapphire. So things like our business suite, business AI, and business data cloud. And so the new hot topics that'll be covered at Sapphire, we want to give you a preview, give you the background you need to know from an enterprise architect's perspective. So there is limited seating available. You do need to pre-register for it. Paul will put a link to it in the chat if he hasn't already. And we look forward to seeing you. We always sell out that event. And it's a really good time for customers to collaborate with each other and have a smaller group of people where you can talk to people who and gain from them what are the experiences they're having across the board. So it's always a good day to get you started on your Sapphire week. And that's coming up here in May. So May 19th, mark your calendar. We hope to see you there.
And Martin, let's further add to that too. So it's not just a pre-conference session around for enterprise architects. So what's new for 2025 is there's a whole stream of architect sessions on the 3rd floor this year of track sessions for enterprise architects throughout the program as well.
Yeah,
So
I
in
forgot to.
conjunction to the Jumpstart, there's a whole stream of content embedded inside as well. Do you want to further add to, I mean,
Sure,
you and the team have done a great work at assembling that. Good lineup
sure.
of
So the
speakers. Great.
Yeah, this year sessions upstairs are back. We haven't had it for the last few years. And so ASUG has put together some programming. There is an EA track where we're bringing together some customer experience sessions where you can hear right from the customers their experience. Some of the EA topics we're presenting there upstairs through the rest of the 20th and the 21st. That is just part of your overall conference experience. There's no charge for that or anything, but lots of good sessions that'll be through the other days. So if you know are tired of the show floor and want to come upstairs and attend a session, it's going to be there.
So there'll be stuff in the pre-con, there'll be stuff in the sessions, and I'm sure there'll be lots inside the ASUG booth. But I'd be remiss if I forgot to mention about the EA party. So on the Monday evening, and I just popped another link in the chat as well. We did it last year. On Monday evening, starting at 7 p.m. before the event starts at the Blue Martini is the place to be for enterprise architects to sort of jumpstart the event. So I definitely want to highlight that. So those are just a few lead-in pieces. We'll have some more links and things to share later. But now I just want to move on to our featured speaker, Klaus Burger, who's going to join us. So Klaus, could you come back on screen? And I think, and it maybe just unmute. Awesome.
Just realized I was on mute. Yeah, typical. But I hope you can all see the screen. I hope it's coming up in full resolution. Let me know.
For me, it's just showing up in the corner there, Klaus. It's not full screen. I don't know what it's like for everybody else.
Yeah, I'm getting the same thing.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
There might be a slight delay.
So,
all right,
Klaus, a bit of a front end before you get going. I'd love for you to, I mean, and thank you once again for sort of taking the time. You know, I get from all over. I have, you know, existing architects, you know, how they get better, how they get certified. I hear from SAP professionals, right? You know, and you were at the event we had in Newtown Square. I think I asked the crowd how many were enterprise architects and how many were SAP professionals who were interested, right? So you've got these different audiences that are out there that are interested in learning. I get emails every day from people saying, how to become an enterprise architect, you know, where are the resources? So thanks again for helping frame some of the resources you were providing. But I think it would be good to give an added context on your intro of the organization that you're in as well and what they sort of do. Klaus?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Paul, for setting the stage. I also want to make one comment. The Blue Martini Bar sounds really good. You probably will see me there as well. Before I introduce myself, quick story, because that's something that happened on the weekend. So I'm currently renovating the upstairs of my house. So we put in new hardwood floors on the entire 2nd floor that we have. And for that, I also have to take down, dismantle a couple of the furniture we have, like a bookshelf, a couple of others, to store it downstairs in the garage and then bring it up once the floors are assembled. Quick question I want to have to all of you just to think about. Did you ever try assembling furniture without the manual? Because that's basically what I got into after the floors were laid, bring back up the furniture. And I didn't record myself when I dismantled it. So like, okay, I'm trying to figure this out, how this goes. I'm putting in, I've got all the parts together. I have the tools. I even put on some music and had a refreshing beverage. So around 90 minutes in, my wife comes into the room and she is like, I thought you were working on a bookshelf. And I said, yes, I am. And she said, it looks like a modernist chair at this point. So, and to me, I was like, it was funny, obviously, because it kind of did, and I struggled a little bit. But to me, that's also like a good reference to what today's business and IT world can feel like. And we have a lot of tools, a lot of ideas, ambition, but not always a shared blueprint. And I think that's where enterprise architects come in. And that's what I want to talk about today, the user guide to SAP's EA certification, give a couple of insights into the topic. If I can move on to the next slide, I hope it functions. So yeah. So, but first to introduce myself, my name is Klaus Burger, Head of Product and Solution Learning for cross-disciplinary topics. It's not usually a term I like too much. I prefer usually to say Product and Solution Learning for the innovative stuff, the cool stuff. So I have, besides enterprise architecture, a lot of other topics such as business AI, end-to-end business processes, and so on and so forth. But it's really nice to say these days because enterprise architecture became such a hot commodity and a trend topic overall. So people actually confirm me when I say it's the innovative stuff, the cool stuff. And oftentimes it's like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. So, and I feel like this has changed over maybe like the last decades. I wasn't part of that yet. So I've been with SAP for almost 15 years, a little bit less than 15 years. And like I said, over the course of the career, I actually get closer to the enterprise architecture, but I'm still rather new in this topic. So I will make a lot of references to some of the colleagues we work with on a day-to-day basis, and that's content that I also want to refer to. So over the next 25 minutes, I will be your guide through what enterprise architecture is, what does it actually mean for your organization, what skills and mindsets are needed. And I know we have learners, Paul, you said it, with all sorts of backgrounds. So just to set the stage for everyone, 1 and 2 is based more on theory, and then we move into how we can get certified, why is the certification matters. But like I said, before I get rolling, I want to give a quick shout out to a lot of as a lot of the content that I'm referring to later on was developed with the fantastic support of various organizations within SAP, Anja Schneider's organization, Thomas Pfister's team, plus, quite frankly, a variety of a dream team of individual contributors: Andreas Poth, Stefan Fassmann, Thomas Wurst, Axel Schwarz, Kuhn, Bart, list goes on. I can't mention everyone here, but then also one more comment to who I gave this session with last time was actually in Newtown Square together with David Heffernan, who is not joining us today, unfortunately, but who we presented a very similar version of this session just a few weeks ago, and I was able to steal a couple of his slides, so grateful for that. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think this is not a solo act. It's more of a well-architected ensemble of content that we are going through today. At the end of the day, you are the judge of it. But let's see how it's going. Let's talk about what is enterprise architecture. So imagine this. You are on a hiking trip. You have got a backpack full of gear. You have the latest hiking boots, for instance, maybe a fancy GPS. But there's just one problem. You do not have the map and the direction of where you want to go. And this is basically what navigating today's IT and business landscape can feel like without enterprise architects. So EAs basically give us the map, the trail markers, the safety ropes, you name it, depending on how you want to phrase the metaphor here. But without it, quite frankly, we're just making educated guesses in the dark. So let's have a look at the TOGAF standard. They use Gartner's definition of enterprise architect, and it's the following. It's the process of translating business vision and strategy into effective enterprise change by creating, communicating, and improving. Now I have to move this window here for a second. Improving the key principles and models that describe the enterprise future state and enable its evolution. When I saw this the first time, I'm honest, I had to read it twice to fully understand it. But notice how it talks about business vision and strategy. And remember that enterprise architecture makes sure to align the business needs with the technology you have to implement in order to reach the business goals. And I know this might seem obvious, but believe me, it's hardly the norm. Many IT initiatives are not aligned with the business needs and also not aligned with the enterprise future state vision, and they sometimes work in a very isolated way. So an enterprise architect is developed for one very simple reason: to guide effective change. To put it a little bit simpler. And I always like to say, think of it like city planning versus building a cafe. You don't just plop a coffee shop wherever there's space. You look at the foot traffic, the zoning, the transport, and how the whole ecosystem flows. And EAs, enterprise architects, do exactly that for your organization and tech strategy. So what is the role of an enterprise architect? And again, referring a little back to the theory here, the role of the enterprise architect is more like that of a city planner, as I just mentioned, than that of a building architect. And the product of the enterprise architect is more aptly characterized as a planned community rather than a well-designed building or set of buildings. And imagine you're tasked with improving and evolving the city. There's so many moving parts within it. There's so many components that relate to one another, and that the existing relationship really become critical on how you're going to approach the challenge. And in the role of the EA, you really must consider the services your population will use, how they will move in and out of the city, and you're basically formulating the city's master plan, like basically the vision of where people will live, where will they work, where will they play, and defining those zoning laws, infrastructure, power grid, emergency access, and green spaces. And yeah, remember, you're not hired to build a specific building. And I always like to say, you know you're doing it well and you're doing it right when no one notices the chaos you avoided. People are very, very good at realizing chaos. It's very difficult to understand where you actually minimize chaos. And I think that's the key thing here overall. I heard something popping up, by the way. I do not have access to the chat, but I'm happy to answer questions when I go through it. Paul, you let me know overall. So maybe one more slide regarding theory, then we move on into the more practical approach. What does enterprise architecture mean to your organization? And maybe it's good for me to start with a rhetorical question. Can you win a chess game by only looking at your next move? And ultimately, I think we all know the answer to that one. A good enterprise architecture provides a holistic approach to make the business strategy and create a well-defined path to reach those business goals and objectives. And the key word here really is holistic. An enterprise architecture allows you to see the big picture. Like I said, not the chess game, not the next move. Maybe you're up 10, 20, 30,000 feet in the sky. If you go back to our city metaphor, to see the whole horizon and help you identify where the organization wants to go. And that's only feasible via a rigorous planning method to develop a well-defined execution path. So what are those attributes overall? Comprehensive. I said earlier, imagine trying to renovate a house without knowing where the pipes and the wires run. Probably run into an issue sooner or later. Enterprise architects provides a full view of the business, the tech stack, processes, dependencies, risks. So you're not tearing down any wall-bearing, any load-bearing walls by accident. Then we have simplification, which is the impact of external forces like political, economical, social, environmental, the list goes on, legal, ethical, etc. On your business complexity of a VUCA world. I think we heard the term VUCA world quite a bit in Newton Square a month ago. For those of you, I hope everyone knows it, but for those who don't know what it is, the word VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And enterprise architecture is your filter, basically. Like you act as a translator and kind of like become the GPS through that, through that fogginess, let's say like this. And quite frankly, when we talk about this, it sounds easy, but it's never easy. Simplifying complexity is one of the hardest things overall. And quite frankly, no one knows it all, can do it all in my mind. Otherwise, I think all enterprise architects would actually sit at Wall Street and make really good bets over there. But it's really about what is meant by this is really about to have a good understanding of all the moving parts and clarity on the architecture vision to really strive through an organizational objective that aligns overall. Two more, acting as a glue. I think this one is a little bit more self-explanatory. That really aligns the functions and moving parts together. It's like conducting an orchestra. So you can't really miss the percussions and just want to concentrate on the strings. It's really about, again, focusing on the holistic approach here. And then last but not least, it's based on data and not just a gut feeling. Good enterprise architecture and EAs are not just about guesses, it's about insight. It gives you data, patterns, context, so you really can make decisions with confidence. And summing this all up, I'm saying it in the, or maybe it's a good time to actually zoom out for a second. Well, we have talked about enterprise architecture, what it is, what it does, and why it matters. And now comes the big question, what do you actually need to be good at? And what learning you need to go through to hopefully be certified by end of the week, right? And that obviously is a little bit like of a joke here. It's not something that can be learned overnight. If you just look at the slide and like the various boxes that you see here, nobody can achieve this overnight. Doesn't matter what training it is a little bit of a longer road. But that being said, I always say to customers, to colleagues, in general, it is something that you have to commit, because you can't just do it on the side, and you will see this later on when you go through the learning. It's really something where you say, I prioritize this and I will go through the learnings that we show later, but also learn on the side and not just have it open as a separate window while you actually do your work and then go through some of the learning materials. So, like I said, it's not just about the frameworks, the drawing patterns, anything what we have to do. It's really about bringing business together, technology, professional skills, and knowledge, what you see on the slide here. And you need to understand the business when we talk about business skills, not just the org chart, but how value is created, how decisions are made, and where the pain points are. And why does it matter to the C-suite? I think that's an important one. What is it that the business wants? And what is it that the system can actually do? It's always like those two questions, bring them together. Technical skills, what you see here, I don't think you have to be a developer. Many people come to me, it's like, do I have to be a developer? My answer is no, you don't have to, but you absolutely should know what's under the hood when it comes to APIs, etc. Like a technical understanding is very, very helpful and needed. And then professional skills. Now here where it gets real, quite frankly, because you can be the smartest person in the room, but if you can't align stakeholders, build trust and adapt, you're not set up for success. You're actually set up for failure. And Paul, I think you're also doubling down on this a lot with all the great events that you're planning. It's really about what are the communication skills needed to actually articulate your vision. And then last but not least, knowledge. But frankly, everyone needs to have a solid base of knowledge, because tool change, tech evolves, business needs shift. And being an enterprise architect really means like you have to be a lifelong learner overall.
And Klaus, could I just one more thing to this? Go back to that slide for a second. Is basically, I mean, there's a reason not many people know, we purposely frame this as an enterprise architect SAP community, not enterprise architecture, right? Because as per your slide, you know, it's not just about enterprise architecture, it's also the technical skills, but it's all the other human skills in and around it, right? So I love this slide, and particularly, you know, on the left side, the right side, and the middle, right? For a more holistic approach, and that's what we intend to focus on.
Yeah. So easy, right? It's easier said than done, because there's a lot of skills and that come into play here. But okay, let's shift away from the theory of an enterprise architect, SAP Enterprise Architect, and move towards the actual learning and certification path. And I want to start with a little question to everyone. And I know I don't see you, I don't see the chat, but who of you has ever tried to plan a vacation and ended up basically falling down the rabbit hole of booking reviews and flight comparison sites and YouTube travel vlogs maybe, only to ultimately give up and say, you know what, let's just do the trip from last year, or let's just do what my first instinct was. And I don't see you, but I feel like normally when I give this presentation in a classroom setting or like in a meeting room, a solid amount of like 30-40% actually raise their hand here. And I feel like for many of you, this is kind of a little bit like how enterprise architecture certification and the learning landscape can feel like. Because when I started over a year ago, that's a little bit like what it felt to me. It felt overwhelming. That's why I put this on the slide. It felt endless, and it felt full of choices that all seem important. So it was really, really overwhelming. And at some point, I mean, you start with one course, you do another, and then before you know it, because I like to print out PDFs, you have like a full stack of 100 papers on your desk, and you reconsider life choices that you make. So in this case, I hope I'm taking away some of your worries here, because today I really want to focus on the learning journey to become a certified enterprise architect in a structured, efficient, and hopefully even enjoyable way. So before I get started, maybe I can get reactions here in the chat, because I usually like to understand who here has already started in SAP learning, just for me to understand where we are, like what depth I have to start with. Can you put a thumbs up if you have? Then I see a couple of thumbs up. Okay, perfect. Usually in the meeting room, I usually say like, who's gotten halfway through a course? And usually like 30% of people say like, yes. And then I usually continue with the questions like, and who totally forgot to complete it? And then usually like another 30% of the hands go up. And I totally understand this, because we all have busy lives. But yeah, maybe just to set the stage, this is learning.sap.com. It's a little video. Again, I just went through it the other day. So if there's one thing I want you to take away from today's session is learning.sap.com. If you type it in, you will exactly end up in the same spot. There's a lot of good content overall. Business Unleashed event is an event that we featured heavily recently. There are all kinds of beginner courses like Business Data Cloud, for instance, if this is something you're interested in. Just saying this, again, there's a lot of great resources for everyone available at your fingertips. And they're, again, available for anyone. There is no paywall or anything in between. For today, obviously, I want to focus on the SAP Enterprise Architect. So if you would type this in, again, you would see exactly the same, all the assets that come with it. And we have a lot of those. So it can be a little bit tricky to understand where do I even start. In this case, I select the SAP Enterprise Architect Certified Professional certification, which is the certification I will aim and focus on for today's session. And again, it is an exam which will take 3 hours. Normally in a classroom setting, I like to give out the microphone and let some colleagues who went through it share a little bit of the experience. So we'll see if you have this, but overall, again, a lot of good content, just not always really clear like where to start and what the path looked like. Overall, I want to say, because that's the first question, how long does it take? Quite frankly, it's not a simple answer question, because I think everyone here on this call has a very different background. Maybe some of you have like a lot of experience, some others maybe have no experience whatsoever. In general, my rule of thumb is you have to dedicate 1 to 3 hours a day for at least a month or 2. Most likely more, depending on where you start. Just to give you that rough house number, I know I shouldn't do this, but overall, that's what I would say, like based on not what I say, but based on what some other learners told me overall. So let's see if I can get out of this video. Yeah, okay. So the Certified Professional SAP Enterprise Architect, couple of benefits before I go into the learning material, because it's built on a couple of pillars that I want to highlight. So first, foundation fundamentals. You do not build a skyscraper on sand. That's not how we start. We start with the basics, SAP Business Technology Platform, architecture principles, frameworks, just to really get that in place. And then again, theory is one thing, but the application of knowledge is another. So hands-on learning, like I said, theory is great, but real-world application is a lot better. And then there is the option to go through case studies, labs, practical exercises, in which you will learn to apply these principles that you learned in the Foundation and Fundamentals course. Then we have certification readiness. Again, it is designed, the certification is designed to help you pass. If you go through these learnings, they build on the learnings, the questions will build on the content that you went through prior. That being said, you really have to take the time to go through it. It's not something, like I said earlier, you just go through the courses, you get into the exam right away. It's like you go through the courses, realize a lot of content that you may be more in the loop with, or like less in the loop with, and then kind of like find a good balance, which I will share in a second. And lastly, flexibility for real life. I mentioned this, it will take some dedication to get there. It's an official certification, so we want to make sure there's a certain bar. Everyone who gets the certification has a certain baseline understanding. But I also know, like, let's be honest, no one has 8 hours a day to sit through training. So our learning paths are flexible, they're self-paced and available at any time on learning.sap.com. So it doesn't really matter if you're a night owl, early morning bird, you basically have it at your fingertips as you're liking. A couple of in-room activities and blended learnings, which I will share in a second. So now rushing through it. I hope I'm not too fast, but keep me, or interrupt me if you feel, Paul. But I think let's start with everything we went through. That sounds good, but where do you actually even begin? So we just released a brand new learning, beginner learning for enterprise architects, and it's designed exactly for that first step. It's called Discovering SAP Enterprise Architecture, and I would say it's more like a guided tour versus like a lecture. But there's basically 4 pillars that we focus on. It's like introducing SAP and the overall portfolio, baseline knowledge, exploring the enterprise architect role, the differences, the various architect roles, the importance of it, the relevance. We have the introducing the SAP architecture framework in general, methodology, tools, principles, and then we obviously have the implementation, and you will get a sneak peek to tools like SAP Signavio, SAP LeanIX, SAP BTP, Business Technology Platform. So there's a lot in it. I think it's a really, really great starting point also for those who are already in the topic as a refresher. And I think why giving this a go, I always say, like, for colleagues and for customers and people of interest in general, I always say, like, if you are in the SAP ecosystem and you want to speak the language of transformation, that's a really, really good starting point. And I also know sometimes I get like a little bit of skeptics in the room who say, like, is it actually beginner friendly? And I think with this course, I can really say, if you were able to dial into this meeting, you are able to go through this learning for sure. So that's what it was designed to. And we will share the link in a second or after this call as part of the slides. Paul will figure that out. So now let's do a double click, or actually zoom out and like do a double click on various learnings that we have on the slide here. Again, shout out, like in the beginning, like I said, like there's a lot of colleagues involved creating and building and developing those courses. And they're designed, I have my Teams window, unfortunately, over half of the slides, so I only see 2/3 of it. But they're really designed to give you a path. So you start with like the basics as I outlined, with the theory. Then we go into more of like deepening your knowledge, kind of like rolling up your sleeves and applying some of it. And then ultimately, third step is to actually schedule the exam once you feel like, okay, you are in a place where you feel like, that's a good time to give it a shot. So let's have a look on the left side first, and then I kind of like walk you through it. Again, all these courses you will find on learning.sap.com. I assume we have a lot of partners on this call as well. We also have learninghub.sap.com that kind of like gives you the same overview of courses, but everyone can start on LSC if they want to, and then based on your preferred portal, the partner portal, or like the open portal, you will have access to these courses, and you can schedule, like I said, blended learnings that we'll go to in a second. But yeah, we have the Discovering SAP Enterprise Architecture, roughly 4.5 hours, which we built out, released together with Kuhn and Bart like a week ago. So it's really brand new. We have Applying the SAP Enterprise Architecture Framework, which is building on it. It's a more in-depth version of understanding theory, methodology, tools, frameworks. It is longer. It has some of the content which is doubling, quite frankly, for a good reason, quite frankly, because if you are familiar with it, some of it really needs to have a refresher. I hope those are not chat messages, but you will let me know. And then we also have Exploring the SAP Architecture Framework Foundation, which is a shortened course for those who want to have a refresher on that topic. Managing Clean course, always a good one to understand the perspective from the SAP side. There's a lot more, so I had to simplify it on a slide. I see like this is like the baseline package that we recommend as a starting point before we actually go into the deepen your knowledge section. And now we're moving into the middle section. So tools is usually like a big question that comes up. What kind of learning materials do we have for tools? Business transformation management, Signavio, LeanIX. I will have a separate slide for those. I also have a separate slide for those who want to focus on business transformation management overall. But what's highlighted here in pink are hands-on learnings. So like I said, first part is really self-consumer, get a starting point, and then we have an option of either doing an IAA 10 Intelligent Enterprise Architecture training, which is a full week in the classroom, which you can sign up for, 5 days, really like pedal to the metal, go through all the content, which is like kind of like a fast track. And then, but like I said earlier, not everyone can take off the day, or like it's difficult. We also said, okay, let's have a blended learning, which is actually the learning on top of it, called applying the SAP Enterprise Architecture framework. And that's also a case study, blended learning, 5 days, 5 sessions, I should rather say, not 5 days. And every time you get together, part of a group, and go through that case study. So that has seen a lot of success in the last year and month. Definitely something I would always recommend to go through, because the application of knowledge is actually like super important. But usually what we also get feedback, and that's why I put it here as well, is I want to double down on solution transformation tools. I want to double down on methodology. I want to double down on enterprise architecture's point of view from a LeanIX transformation point of view, or other tools like Cloud ALM. So those learnings underneath in blue, again, available for anyone. Baseline also could be used for another certification, which you will see on the same slide. But ultimately, that's a big path to actually go through it. There's more learnings, and that's why I have the next slide, because like, oops, here we go. Because depending on the direction you want to go, different learnings may be applicable. So the first slide was really professional SAP Enterprise Architect, SAP Business Transformation Management, super important topic overall. I think many of you know René and the team of LeanIX. There's a lot of good learnings that were produced, really highlighting, no, I don't see this part of the slide, but I think it's called the Business Transformation Consultant, or the Enterprise Architecture Consultant from that point of view. And there are a couple of learnings that we highly recommend when you want to go through that route, like focusing more on the business transformation side of things. Again, we have 3 baseline learnings for theory, and the last one, exploring business and solution transformation tools and methodology, is focused on the integrated tool chain, which means is really focused on bringing LeanIX, bringing Signavio, bringing Cloud ALM together, which is also part of the course, which is for the solution transformation management, Cloud ALM, highlighted in the 8 hours underneath. The last course, exploring business solution transformation tools and methodology, is part of it as well. I know this is a lot, apologize. But I do think like all of those slides really will make it a lot easier for you to actually find your way through it. And then last but not least, yep, works just fine. When we look at the product level and you really want to have a deep dive into Signavio, LeanIX, we have additional learning on our platform as well. And that always depends a little bit like your direction, your expertise, your background. Oftentimes say like, hey, I worked with Signavio, I haven't really worked with LeanIX, or vice versa, or Cloud ALM. So these are great assets to actually go through to educate yourself about those. Do you need to go through the certification? That's usually where I finish. Because now I highlighted a lot. Focus today, SAP Enterprise Architect. I put them here because they're supplemental. There's something we offer from an SAP point of view. But the learnings itself will help you towards the Enterprise Architect, or if you want to go into a Certified Associate Consultant certification, it is an option. And then with this, you may think that sounds great, but do I really need the certification then for the, because obviously I don't recommend anyone to go through all the certification. There are a lot of colleagues who have multiple ones, but quite frankly, I always say, or let me put it this way, if Enterprise Architecture is a language, the certification is your passport. That's, I think, the best way to describe it. Surely you can travel without a passport, but quite frankly, it will be a lot easier to get around and get through security, obviously. So for me, certification isn't just a paper. It's really proof that you know how to align the IT with business strategy and really design scalable architectures and actually bring order to the chaos around digital transformation that can come with it. So I think it's a game changer for everyone's career. Having the certification is a big plus. It's an opener for like door opener for leadership roles, salaries, and quite frankly, more credibility. When you tell someone like the system needs to have a serious rethink, it sparks a lot of conversation. I feel like that credibility makes it a lot easier to have a conversation. So my challenge to you is simple. Don't let the learning journey intimidate you. Take the first step, start small, and keep going. And I think before you know it, it won't just be navigating. I think you will just get to the point where you say, okay, let's schedule the exam and get through it. And I think with this, you can also lead the transformation. And the reason why I want to finish with why now. Some of you may still be thinking, that sounds great. Let me start next month. I usually say, let me remind you, transformation really doesn't wait. Businesses are moving fast, and the demand for skilled enterprise architects is skyrocketing. Paul, in one of the sessions in Ethan's career, I think, I'm not sure who said it, like job postings are up 30% year over year for enterprise architects. So why not starting today then? And with this, I think I can hand it over back to you, Paul.
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned about jobs are skyrocketing, right? I got a note in the middle from one of your colleagues said, "Can you make a plug to apply for SAP EA roles inside the session?" Right. So there's demand all over the place, definitely for sure. I encourage you. We have a couple of minutes inside the chat, and I'll sort of field some questions. But as we're waiting to take some questions inside the chat, Martin, can you come online? You're not just a certified architect, but you're also a certified, you actually do training in around the SAP Enterprise Architecture framework. So any other commentary on certification?
Yeah, it's tough. You do, although there's no prerequisites, one thing that I'll mention that's available, there is a study guide online as well. And that study guide outlines the content you need to know. So out of all the things that Klaus said, there are a bunch of supplemental, whether it's self-study, online coursework you can take and things like that. There's a lot of content you need to know for the certification exam. So one of the things that the architecture advisory group did last year was everyone got certified just to raise the level of professional capability within SAP. And I was one of the instructors for the team. And so there's a lot of people that got certified, and we had lots of different experiences, but it is tough. It asks a lot of deep questions. There are sample questions online as well to give you a feel for the types of questions and how they're formatted for the exam. That's a big help because some of you, if you're like me, I haven't taken an exam in years. So it was good to refresh, get familiar with the way they ask questions. There is there's an online case study that you can take and review before the exam that is part of the certification as well. So I would look into what's online, the study guide, and those types of helps so that you can be prepared for being certified. But it is a tough exam.
And I would add as well, it has some questions in the chat about the sessions and the links in the slides. So I'll be posting it first to our Enterprise Architect SAP Community LinkedIn group. I post a link to the chat so you can join that as well, and I'll also be posting on LinkedIn. So we'll be posting a link to the recording of this. You'll get the recording pushed after, but on LinkedIn, I'll be pushing out a link to the recording plus the slides where you can click on the links.
And Paul,
go ahead.
I almost forgot to mention there is on April 10th. I'll post it in the chat as well. There is a ASUG presentation or webinar on the top priorities for enterprise architects, what you need to know or what matters most in 2025. So that's another session as we continue to roll out content for the enterprise architecture community. Besides the roadshows you announced and details forthcoming, if you need another quick hit of content or information, April 10th, online, the link is in the chat if you want to attend that session as well.
Great. And I want to further, incremental resource, I did post in the chat, some of you that are new, TOGAF and things like that. I did post a link to, we did a webcast with Eric Yeager, a author of a great book on a very practical book around a lot of the frameworks. So definitely check that out. And the other thing I want to highlight as well, things are converging the right point in time, as I mentioned. There's a book that came out on November 21st called Enterprise Architecture with SAP, written by 3 top SAP enterprise architects that talk about the enterprise architecture framework. It goes through use cases and also talks about LeanIX and how that fits in the overall equation. And I'll be giving out, by the way, 10 e-copies of the book. So we'll do in essence, draw by people that registered, and I'll be reaching out to 10 lucky winners for that book. But we've had great feedback from it, and I just want to make some commentary. The book is designed for 3 audiences. 1, it's enterprise architects looking to evolve. 2, it's SAP professionals looking to become enterprise architects, as well as C-levels as well. So inside the book is a pretty cool metro map that really takes people through a guide on how to read the book. So I would encourage that as another great resource. And the other question I get, and I have one more bit of information to share, so to speak, before we sort of work on wrapping up. She's become a good friend of mine, a global thought leader on business architecture named Wendy Keene. It's interesting. We come across many SAP professionals, business analysts, things like that are looking to become an enterprise architect. And what we say is sometimes, if you want a place to start with business architecture. And Wendy and I came up with this free course about, it was actually a year ago, I think tomorrow, actually, we recorded in Newtown Square. It's self-learning, and you get a completion certificate from it. The feedback we've got from attendees of this course have been off the chart. Wendy is amazing, and if you're not super technical in background, you want to evolve to be in enterprise architecture, start with business architecture. So that's another great learning part of the path on this journey that I would suggest. We have a couple more minutes for sort of questions. And Klaus, again, thanks for sharing all of this. You folks have done a great job with all the architects groups inside SAP of, you can learn on your own pace, right? And the question came in about what alternatives to classroom training, right? You folks have really assembled that together on your platform for people to go through their journey. Any other commentary in closing?
So maybe just from my side, fully agree. This book, great. I have it. I read through it. I think once you go through the training, and we also had this, I think the exam guide, once you go through a hands-on section, there's a lot of live sessions that are offered, a lot of additional material, also like the study that you posted, Martin. Like it is a path though, it requires commitment, and ultimately, once you're through it and you successfully go through a certification, the journey doesn't stop there. It is really a journey for the long run. You constantly can keep learning. There's always something new to learn, but that's also why I think it's such a fascinating and interesting topic, which is super, super relevant, obviously, for every organization. So I think that's all I can say. If there are any questions, let me know. Paul,
well, I want to add, and you and I haven't talked about this, but I think a bit of our vision from a community side is basically, we have people at different levels, right? and Martin and I were chatting a few weeks ago, is we're also getting architects together as a community, not just cross industry, but by industry as well. So that's coming. We're probably going to start with utilities, but have you guys thought on your end about, in essence, your certified architects are basically almost a community within the community, right? They've got certified, they've gone through a level. Have you thought about getting together that group of certified architects? They're a little different, right? And a little more evolved. Any commentary on that?
I don't want to speak for my colleague here. I know that a lot of things in work. I think Sapphire is the next key milestone where we bring a lot of these together, and to drive that like further, like, and really like double down on it. I think ultimately learning through community is the strongest asset you can have as an enterprise architect, because different use cases, different business cases, lots of different questions, but the intersection, Paul, and that's why you're driving this so well, I think is the biggest heart here. At Sapphire, I think we will announce a couple more things, and we also bring a lot of these folks together, but I can't speak for them, unfortunately.
So let's get a couple of questions in terms of, a question here, do you need the Learning Hub subscription to register for the exam? So Klaus, can you talk about that a little bit?
I can, briefly. So we have learning.sap.com, which is our public platform, and then we have Learning Hub. I think Mark made a comment here in this chat, which is dedicated for our partners. So very likely that you may already have a subscription and you can register, but there is a paywall at some point for our partners in order to schedule it. Same with Honesty, same with LSC. Eventually, before you are able to register, there is a paywall before you have to sign up and to register actually. So,
but there's a fee. There's a fee to get certified, right? You don't really need a subscription, right? There's.
You can
I don't think it's a lot.
Yeah, you have to schedule the exam. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But you don't need a subscription for that. You have a few different attempts, I believe, or how it's sort of set up.
Yeah. But for partners, in particular, because the question is addressed at partner, there is subscription gives you access to a lot of additional assets and learnings like live sessions. And then for the actual exam, that's something you have to register separately.
Great. The other question here says, so we have the book and live sessions for prep for certification, or did I miss it? There is no classroom training. So Klaus, you want to address that, because they're a mixture of things. You have some online stuff and you have class training that's incremental, is potential additional, right? If you could frame that. Yes.
So we do have in-classroom trainings. You will find them on learning.sap.com as well. We do have blended learnings as well. So virtually and on-site, both options. When you make yourself through like the baseline knowledge, eventually you get to a point where you want to apply your knowledge, and that's what those hands-on experiences are for. We highly recommend to take advantage of those. And yeah, you can register based on date and availability. So there are a couple of suggested dates for blended learnings. Those are like 5 days that you can sign up for, or like on-site virtually. That is happening throughout the year. So it's not just like a one-off this month and then we're not talking about this. This is happening on a regular basis to really improve and simplify the learning overall. And we have seen that this is really, really beneficial to really like be able in a way to learn and ask questions with an instructor hands-on.
The question there is there a subscription fee for non-partners?
Always a question that comes up. Everything highlighted in the blue box, besides scheduling the exam, is available for anyone. Hands-on, there is a paywall at some place with like additional assets if you want to access those. But again, it really depends what kind of assets you're looking for. But eventually you'll come across it. But the starting point, the first learnings that we highlighted, again, in this blue box is available for anyone. You don't even need to have a login, but quite frankly, you should log in because you can save your progress. It will make your learning experience overall a lot better.
Great. And great news is you folks have provided a lot of free resources available to many, right? In addition to the incremental stuff for partners. So thanks on your end for providing all that, many hours of material.
Yeah. And there might be something, I can't announce it today, but there might be something in that area as well at Sapphire that we will announce. So there's more good stuff coming too.
And rest assured, the Sapphire stuff, if you're there or if you're not there, we'll be sure to share this overall as a community. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. As I said, you'll get the presentation soon. We'll post on LinkedIn shortly as well in the EA community. And again, Klaus, thanks very much for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for having me.
And Martin, thanks as always. Take care, everybody.
You bet.
Have a great day.
Look forward to the next EA community event.